I decided this year that I would like a camper van. So this one was brought around to me and I liked the look of it. I liked the woodwork inside, and although I didn't want a double bed, I could take the squabs out. I liked the self-containment certificate, which meant I could stay anywhere I liked. And with a number plate like that, she was immediately christened Gypsy. My first night was out at Clark's Beach, and from there I had a good look around the Glenbrook Railway. I stayed down at 6th Avenue in Tauranga on my way down to Waimana, and look at the beautiful sunset that I scored while I was there. A few days at Waimana, then called at Tauranga and watched some hang gliding before heading up into the Hunua Ranges. After lunch, I enjoyed the loop walk. Then I headed north, and at Shakespeare Park I walked into the little waterfall. The walk started off like this. Somebody had a sense of humour. Heading further north, I needed to get off the main road while the traffic was going up and coming down from Waitangi weekend. So I spent some time on the peninsula there. That's the Maharangi Peninsula. I walked around the sculpture trail, which I had not seen before. It was the year to walk around the Waiheke sculpture walk, so down I went. Looking up through the bucket, you see the placement of the stars. This was the first time I knew about the Heroic Garden Festival, which they have in Auckland every year to raise funds for hospice. This one was owned by a lady in her 80s and was one of 26 open gardens. There are many lava caves under the suburbs of Auckland. Most have been filled in, but the owners of this garden have made a feature of theirs. It's 2 metres high and 4 metres wide. This was a large garden with some lovely interesting sculptures. A play area for petanque and chess. Corrugated iron statue. The vegetable garden. The rest area. And the herb garden. This garden was well out in the country and a favourite venue for weddings. Another country home with a very interesting history, shifted out from Herne Bay, where it had been very neglected for many years, and restored in 1993. This was the last of the gardens that I visited, out in the country, large area, and very nicely done. sheep and goat of corrugated iron. This was a magic spot for my first night on the Forgotten World Highway, just above the stream. There was a group of kayakers preparing for a paddle up the river. The walk up to the tunnel followed the old road, which hadn't been used since 1968 when they constructed the new cutting. These little carts were available for hire along the old railway line. High up now on the Paparata saddle and Ruapehu comes into view. Joshua Morgan was surveying the route through this area in 1893 when he became ill with peritonitis. One assistant rode back for medication, but more was required, so a week later another assistant went back, but Morgan was dead before he returned. 60 years later, his wife was buried beside him. It's been very dry. I've seen these falls with a lot more water coming over them. Joshua Morgan recommended 5 tunnels through here, but this was the only one that was built. Another great view of Narahoe and Ruapehu from the top of this saddle. This was intriguing. I wasn't tempted by this track, it looked pretty overgrown. And here I came to the bridge to somewhere. It was to a station. It definitely needed a bridge over this chasm, and they were doing some crop dusting while I was there. Into New Plymouth now, and a walk around the Hollard Gardens. They weren't at their best, it was not the right time of the year. I stayed in New Plymouth with Diane and John for a few days, and Diane and I did some exploring around. The new bridge is very impressive, and I got some nice shots of the mountain through it. Then Diane and I went into Pukekura Park and had a very nice lunch there. It was a great playground for the kids. After a couple of days with Colleen, I resumed my exploring. These two treks were very well done and I enjoyed them both. out of town now to Tikarangi and stayed at a Parkover property with Peter and Linda Wilson and heard all about the suspension bridge. After several floods, the council decided that they weren't going to replace it, so the locals got together and bought a plank each and therefore raised enough money to have the bridge repaired. I did a couple of walks in North Egmont. Had lunch here and then drove on to Dawson's Falls. That's where I spent the night. I admired the carving on this pole of birds, kiwis and the eel, and then went on the loop track to Wilkie's Pools. You had to cross on the rocks here and come back down the other side. Down hundreds of steps to the viewpoint and then on down a lot more to the bottom of the falls. I went on to Opunake and walked along the top of the bank through a lovely garden tended by the local gardeners. Got a good view of the beach. And this is where Peter Snell came from, so they have a statue for him. I wanted a shower, so I found a nice lonely spot and had just got stripped off and set out when along came some more cars, so it was delayed. I heard about the Rotocarry Scenic Reserve, so headed in. The road in and out was a real bone shaker, but it was worth it when I got there. It's looked after by a team of volunteers, and they had put in 8 kilometres of vermin-proof fence. So of course the double gates to get you in were to keep any of the dreaded vermin out. Definitely a lovely spot to set up camp. Very interesting information centre there too. Showers and toilets for the sake of the volunteers who work there as well as for the visitors. Next morning I went on a hike around the lake, saw some of the examples of the traps that they use. There were plenty of information signs all the way around. There's my camper over there, a lot further away than it looks. That's on full zoom. Now on to Lake Rotorangi. They have dammed the river and made a power station there. A bonus was hot showers and electric light. Heading to Wanganui, I called in at Kaiwi Beach on the way, and then to the Basin Botanic Gardens. They were lovely. I walked right around the lake, The next stop was Bulls, to stop and read all the fascinating information signs. Somebody there has a great imagination. Next stop was Woodville. I went for a bushwalk while I was waiting for the organ museum. They were having a visit from a church group with 6 organists, and I was very lucky to be invited to join them. I was invited to stay the night there outside the museum, and the next day went on to Hastings, where the AA had to fix up a flat tyre. The Mohaka Viaduct is pretty impressive. The deck is 95 metres above the river. This is the old bridge. Then on to Wairoa. Had lunch beside the river there before going on to Lake Waikare-Moana. The Mokau Falls and Tauwari Falls are visible from the Mokau Stream Bridge. And then I stayed the night at the Mokau Landing campsite. Many years ago, Phil and I and the children stayed there. Murray gave us the key. It used to be the deerstalker's hut. It's now a very adequate ablution area. I stayed there several nights on the edge of Te Wero Bay, and then took a walk down the side of Aniwanawa Falls, right to the bottom. This is a walk I thought I would never do. 1,000 feet straight up to Lake Waikariiti. What a beautiful, pristine little lake that is. And there's an island in the middle of it with a lake on it as well. Then disaster struck. I needed a new radiator and had to coast all the way to Gisborne to get it. Back in Auckland, Rodney took me and a few others on a trip up to Gulf Harbour to show off the new Coast Guard vessel. We went from 40 knots to nothing in 2 seconds. He did warn us to hang on. Then I flew back to Melbourne and stayed with Stephen and Mary, who took me to the Melbourne Flower Show before I got on the plane back to home.